Ziccardi. I'm the director of the Oil and Wildlife Care Network, a program based here at UCDAVIS. We are basically the wildlife rehabilitation arm for California's Department of Fish and Game. So anytime there's an oil spill anywhere in California that has the potential to impact wildlife, we're actually mobilized. And we're actually doing an oil spill right now in Long Beach. Any guesses approximately how many oil spills occur every year in California? 10. Anything else? Any other guesses? Yes? 45. There's about 5,000 oil spills in California every year. Obviously not all of them are the size of Deepwater Horizon or even Sacramento, but there's a lot of oil that goes into the marine environment every year. So it's important to keep that in mind as we're talking about it today, because not every spill is going to be like this one, Deepwater Horizon spill. So when it exploded in the Gulf of Mexico in April 20th, the Gulf Coast has no program like California does. California has 28 organizations throughout the state to be able to respond immediately during oil spills. The Gulf of Mexico has none. So it's important to get there to respond to the animals that were at risk, be they shorebirds, all the way up to sperm whales that might be impacted in the Gulf of Mexico. So in the world of oil wildlife medicine, we've learned a lot about saving birds. Even birds as heavily oiled as this brown pelican. I'm sure many of you saw in the news during the spill. But what we didn't know during this response, what made this spill so frightening, was we didn't know how big it was going to be. This is a very blurry picture, but this is actually the oil coming out of the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico at 5,000 feet. At the greatest point during the response, it was estimated that 2.5 million gallons of oil every day was going into the Gulf. So taking that into consideration, that amount of oil would take about 11 minutes to fill a swimming pool. It also meant that the amount of oil that was going into the Gulf was equivalent to the Exxon Valdez oil spill after 5 days. And for the Costa-Gusano oil spill that happened here in San Francisco Bay in 2007, this spill itself would have equaled that amount of oil in the bay in 30 minutes during this response. Another thing that was very scary is we did not know how to save Gulf species like dolphins, manatees, or sea turtles. None of those species had ever been treated for oil exposure in large numbers in any spill ever. In the Gulf of Mexico, there's 5 different species of sea turtles, each of which are threatened or endangered, like this loggerhead sea turtle. It's also an area where sea turtles nest in the fall. So in the very spots where oil was washing ashore, this is the areas where hundreds of females will come in to lay their eggs every single year. What's important about that are hatchling sea turtles are particularly at risk to oil. They're younger, they're more at risk, plus until they're about 5 to 10 years old, they actually live in this floating seaweed called sargassum. Seaweed is very good for the younger turtles because it allows them to hide from predators, allows them to feed out there. Unfortunately, the sargassum also acts as wonderful sponges for oil that's floating around in the Gulf of Mexico. So where these younger turtles were actually the riskiest parts of the Gulf. We also have 29 different species of marine mammals that inhabit the Gulf of Mexico, ranging from bottlenose dolphins, like are at SeaWorld, all the way up to adult sperm whales in that area. So when the leaders of the spill response actually called me on April 29th, asking me to head up the rescue of marine mammals and sea turtles, I was excited and proud and pretty darn nervous because it had never been done before. As Joseph was saying, since the age of 4, my life's ambition has been to work with marine wildlife and to make a difference for the oceans. It's that mission that actually led me to UCDAVIS to get my veterinary degree and has kept me there as a staff member and now a faculty member in the veterinary school, leading California's oil wildlife program. So when the Gulf of Mexico spill occurred, the Deepwater Horizon spill occurred, I was in the right place at the right time. However, there were a lot of things we didn't know. We had no idea how to clean an oil turtle. It had never been done before in large numbers. In fact, the largest number of oil turtles that had ever come in is 12 hatchlings in a spill. In this response, we've had over 500. We also didn't know how to help an oiled dolphin stranded on the beach. Do you wash this animal on the beach? Do you bring it into captivity? We didn't have facilities set up to care for oiled dolphins at that point. Even the simple things for oiled birds were not simple for these species. I helped draft the national guidelines for marine mammal response, caring for these animals when they become oiled. The problem is those guidelines have never been tested before. We've never had an oil spill where an oiled dolphin has come in. Exxon Valdez had a large number of marine mammals impacted, but none of them came into captivity during that response. So we had to do a number of different things. We had to develop protocols on the fly. We actually had to write the book to be able to care for these animals. We had to modify existing facilities that brought animals in during non-spill times. We actually had to convert them over, like Audubon Nature Institute. We actually had to make them oiled wildlife facilities as we went to be able to care for those animals if and when they occurred. We also had to send people out to catch the animals. Typically during an oil spill, we cover the beach, we wait for animals to come ashore, then we capture them. First several weeks of this response, we had very few animals that were coming in oiled. So we actually had to go out on boats, literally over the place where the Deepwater Horizon was releasing oil, 25 to 80 miles offshore, to try to capture turtles. That little bump right there, that's the back of a Kemp's Ridley sea turtle. So you can see it can be very challenging to find these animals out there. Even if they were found, oftentimes they look more like chocolate turtles than they would real turtles. This is the way we find them. But by getting out there, getting them quickly, getting them back into captivity, getting them cleaned up, we've been able to save over 500 of these animals during the oil spill response. Not everything ran smoothly during the oil spill. As the spill went on, new challenges arose, such as the need to translocate all of those sea turtle nests. We were hoping that by the time the turtles came into nest, the oil spill would be done. That didn't happen. So we had to develop a plan to identify all sea turtle nests, dig them up at day 50, and move them to Cape Canaveral on the Atlantic coast to be able to save them. We also had to be careful of this. This is a controlled burn. This is a cleanup technique they use to get rid of a lot of the oil on the shoreline. This is exactly in the area where we were capturing those oil turtles. So we had to work with the cleanup folks to make sure that the animals we were trying to save weren't injured by some of the cleanup technologies. What we did know is that we had to get things done quickly. We had to learn new things, develop these protocols on the fly, and try to get the best information possible so we can care for these animals as quickly as possible. And really building on the protocols we had for birds, the protocols we had for sea otters, using strong science to be able to care for these animals, to return them back to the Gulf. And I think our numbers here speak better than words. We've collected 535 live turtles to date. We've only lost 13 turtles in captivity. There's only been 13 turtles that have died so far. We still have about 80 or 90 that are in care. But we're releasing them on a weekly basis, trying to get them back out into the Gulf. Mammals, we've only had 9 live dolphins. We've released 3. We still have 2 in captivity. We have had a large number of dead animals that have come ashore during the response. We've seen very little oil either on them or in them when we've done animal autopsies on them. So right now we're trying to learn what we can from those animals to see if there's other impacts of the oil that we can't see. Actually, we're able to relocate almost 280 nests and release over 14,000 sea turtle hatchlings off of Cape Canaveral, Florida. Very good success on those. Many people have asked me how this spill has made me feel personally. If I was angry with BP for creating this mess in the Gulf. It's a difficult question to answer. It's difficult when you're doing the response because you're so focused on providing the best care possible for the animals. I think the feelings that I have are very similar to the feelings that I actually asked my wife to provide. My program has a blog on our website, and I asked her to write how she felt about the spill, because she and my two daughters were basically going through the spill at the same time as I was from here. I was down in the Gulf more than 100 days during the response. It's a long period of time to be away. So on day 50 of the spill, she wrote the following, and I think it does speak on the way that many people felt caught up in the drama of the response. She wrote, "People respond to crises in many different ways. They get angry or sad, ignore or deny, complain, become anxious, or dwell on the problems. These responses often immobilize a person, leaving them feeling helpless. There is, however, another response, a mobilizing one that I have encountered over the last month and a half. Some people are riding their bikes more to reduce their oil use. They're donating or raising relief funds to help animals. Some are educating themselves, reading news stories and blogs. They're talking to each other about national oil policies and reforms. Knowledge is power. With knowledge, we can learn from this and hopefully prevent this from occurring again. Keep talking to your friends, family, neighbors, children. This is the best way we can come up with the answers we need for current and future problems." Those are the words that she wrote during the response. And they're very similar to the things I felt during the response. The truth is, nobody wants oil in the water. It's not good for the environment. It's not good for the spillers. Most of the things that the spills that we see are truly accidents. They're not caused by people intentionally trying to release that oil. It's because of our need for oil that require people to transport it by pipelines, by tankers, and yes, even drill for it off the coast of the United States. Until our need for it decreases, the main thing we can do is make accidents like this as few as we can, and to be as ready as possible to respond to animals that might be at risk. However, it's you, I think, who can make the greatest difference. People like me, I'm busy trying to prevent things from occurring. I'm at the pointy end of the spear, trying to keep things from happening. But you, finding creative ways to reduce our dependence on oil, as well as remaining compassionate to the wildlife that might be injured, maybe even spending your time, energy, and possibly even your career caring for these animals, we as a society can change that future. And I think based on the energy and the information you guys were just presenting, I'm very confident that many, if not all of you, can actually implement those changes to change things for us, for our society, for the future. Again, I want to thank you for inviting me to talk today, and hope the pictures weren't too graphic, but I think it's important to understand what's going on down there, some of the risks we have in California here, and to really build for a better future to try to reduce these types of things happening. Thank you.